If the Pocketnow podcast were anything like our Twitter accounts, this would be a show about horse grooming, chest hair, and dying of dysentery in an Oregon Trail ripoff. Fortunately, or regrettably, depending on your perspective, that is not this show. Instead, we're talking Blackphone, iPhone, old phones and new phones, and a lot more on episode 108 of the Pocketnow Weekly, the once-a-week podcast where we discuss news and opinion from the world of mobile technology, from smartphones to tablets to wearables, all the stuff you wished existed when you were a kid. From Boston, Massachusetts, where Dunkin' Donuts is a legally recognized church, I'm your host, Michael Fisher. I'm joined today by the champion of balance and the wordsmith of giveaways, Pocketnow's chief news editor, Stephen Schenk. Greetings to you.
Hey, Michael, how are you? I'm glad you mentioned Dunkin' Donuts there because my mom left a bag of Dunkin' Donuts coffee at our beach house and it didn't have a coffee grinder. I took it home. I've been drinking it. It's not good, man.
It is not good, man. No, that is very true. I have my own cup of Dunkin' Donuts iced coffee right here, but I tell you what, when it exists very close to your abode, it is a very fine convenience indeed. I want to mention also that Taylor Martin will be joining us on the air as soon as he figures out how to work internet in his basement troll dwelling.
Pick up the phone and whistle really, really fast.
I know, that's exactly what we should be doing. So the delightfully crusty Taylor Martin will be back shortly. Before we go anywhere, I want to let everyone know, people who don't already know, because for about 6 weeks now they've heard that Swappa is sponsoring the Pocketnow Weekly. If you don't know, Swappa is a marketplace for selling gently used phones, tablets, and wearables, and buying them too. And inevitably, people compare Swappa to eBay. Well, that's not much of a comparison, because Swappa has no seller fees. Instead, the buyer pays a flat $10 sale fee. eBay, on the other hand, takes a percentage of the final sale price. They also nickel and dime you for everything. What's more, there are no junk devices allowed on Swappa. Every device sold must have a clean ESN. eBay basically allows you to list everything and anything. In addition, a customer support rep oversees each and every transaction on Swappa, making sure both parties have a smooth experience. And to get help on eBay, you can call their customer service and spend a half hour on the phone. Do you get where I'm going with this, folks? Sure you do. It's clear. In a lot of ways, Swappa is far superior to eBay. Give them a try by going to swappa.com/pocketnow so they know we sent you. That being said, while we wait for Taylor to figure out how the tubes work, why don't we ask Jules to sound the announcement bell?
There it is.
And have Stephen Schenk lead us into the important part of the show for at least one lucky person out there.
Yeah, we had some great response to our latest in the ongoing summer of giveaways here at Pocketnow earlier this week with the help of friend of the show, Stefan, I'm going to butcher your last name. Constantinescu. Istanbul, not Constantinescu. And he was happy to help us give away a Nexus 5 with a special bonus Android Wear watch of the winner's choice. We had a great turnout from this contest, probably one of the best responses we've seen so far this summer. And of the many, many entries, our lucky winner is, drumroll please, Isaac Rodriguez. Isaac, look forward to an email from us. We'll be in touch shortly. Get your information and find out which of those two Android Wear watches you want. No Moto 360, sadly, but LG or Samsung, it's your call.
Congratulations, Isaac. That is awesome news. It is rare too. This was a global giveaway, but as I understand it, Stephen, this giveaway winner is from the U.S.?
So he seems to be, or else using a U.S.-based proxy, but I will be in touch with him shortly and getting his details and finding out for certain.
Well, that is terrific news. Excellent, excellent. I'm glad to hear it. Why don't we continue on the old announcement train? What's the next item on the agenda?
Let's see what we got here.
Oh, yes, indeed. First of all, I do want to say on the air, thank you to TabDump and to Stefan for helping us to sponsor that, for actually sponsoring that giveaway. So that's going to be a lot of fun. You may have mentioned it, but did he respond to Isaac? Isaac has not responded yet with his preferred devices?
I have not contacted him to do the announcement on the podcast here.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
At the same time. Yeah.
Yes, I forgot. Okay, cool. I think it's cool that the way Stefan ran that thing. It was like, you can get a Nexus 5 and an Android Wear device, but you can pick either watch. You know, you don't have to Just like settle for the LG watch or whatever. Whatever. I carry the gear,
It'll corrode on the back of your wrist.
Yeah, that's so gross. On the announcement sector, Taylor Martin informs me, by the way, it's his 6th attempt at even responding to a Hangout text message. So, yeah, the internet is treating us all very poorly today. But
it was bumpy getting it. It was by the skin of my teeth that I managed to get into this Hangout successfully.
A lot of turbulence flying into this podcast,
Yeah.
let me tell you. A lot of clouds over Delaware. Blackphone and LG G3 Prime are both in the house, folks. I want to let you know to get your questions in later. Taylor may not be able to join us. Who knows? Maybe we'll send him out to his car to get an LTE connection or something like that. But I want to let everyone know that we have a Blackphone in the house right now. We unboxed it the other day. We took a bunch of photos of it. And Joe Levi and I have been trying to figure out how to work these things for a while. We'll talk about that later on. Just want to let you know, use the Q&A section if you are watching this podcast live. We also have a Galaxy S5 Sport. If anyone has a question about this after my review, please submit them. I don't anticipate too many. It's an S5 in a bulkier case for $100 more for
Michael,
not much.
You know what we should do with that Blackphone is,
what?
I don't know if Joe is up for this, but we got to find ourselves someone with some hacking skills here. Have you send out a bunch of emails and see if they can, or sharing whatever, and see if they can get into your private Uzi What's-its.
That's a good idea. We actually thought about that, but right now, spoiler alert, we're having a hard enough time just figuring out, how to make the Blackphone work as designed. So
baby steps then.
Yeah, maybe we save that for the after the buzz. I don't know.
Fair enough.
In addition, on the announcements section, the Dell Venue Pro, our retro review is up. A lot of people were asking for that throwback review. Did you watch it, Steven?
I did not, but I have some mixed memories of that device.
Oh man, it was
interesting, but
so much fun. What a great! I mean, it represents so much of the golden age of both Windows Phone and the waning days of smartphone manufacturers experimenting with different form factors, and yes, QWERTY as well.
Yeah.
So that throwback review is up for everyone who's been asking us to do more throwback reviews. Your wish has been granted. And the LG G3 for AT&T review is up as well. I was going to ask Taylor to comment on that. Maybe he can if he shows up. And that's the end of the announcements. One more reminder, get those Q&As in on the Blackphone, the Galaxy S5 Sport, maybe the AT&T G3. We also have an an LG G3 Category 6, Category 3 LTE device in the house, the device formerly known as the old the Prime.
4 or 6? I want to say 6.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think the regular's 4.
We have one courtesy of our friends at 28 Mobile, so toss us a question or two if you have it. Without further ado, Stephen, you're here for the news. So, Jules, why don't we usher Stephen in with a nice bit of sound effect there, if you have it.
I was kind of half expecting an Usher song, but that's going to work.
Yes.
What
was that Usher song that we used to... Oh, wow. Oh, that's a Taylor Martin.
Whoa.
I know that guy.
Hey, you're here. It was so quiet without you.
There we go. Sorry, my preamp took a little bit.
Before you do anything else, you start your sound recorder, friend.
Yes, yeah.
You start it right now because we're not having another edit. Yes.
There.
You got it? Good.
There.
You have a waveform? Are you sure?
Yes.
Good. All right.
What a day.
Listen, we already did the announcement. Steven's just about to start news, and we're going to let him do that. But we'll come back to you on the gadgets and hand section for the G3. But you ready to start news? Can you get yourself settled?
Hold on a minute. Isn't that Michael's shirt Taylor's wearing?
I know.
No.
Taylor, I hate it. Like, Taylor rolls up on this show being like spaceman, and I know you ain't really a spaceman, so it bothers me because you stealing my ish a little bit. You know what I mean?
I'm a spaceman.
What's up with that?
I am a spaceman. Don't you tell me what I am or what I'm not.
I podcast way too often with Taylor Martin. This is fun.
We had a 2-hour. It was actually 2 hours and 10 minutes. Last night that we recorded.
Yeah. At the end of the show, remind me when I give you time to do a plug. Remind me to have you plug Untethered. But for now, Stephen, we need to know the news of the week, man. Hit us with the first piece of news. Speaking of LG,
it can't seem to stop making smartphones. We've been catching wind of all these new LG devices. The G3, then we got the G3 Beat. We're also talking about it as the G3. Well, the G3A is the new one now. We got the G3 Beat last month, which was a little bit smaller, lower end than the G3. Out of nowhere, LG announced for South Korea this new version, the G3A, which is kind of like in between a G3 and a G3 Beat. You might want to call it a G3 Mini. I sort of think it's like a G2 G3, maybe G2.5. It's like a slightly downgraded version of the G3. It's 5.2 inches instead of 5.5. It's got a 1080p display instead of the ridiculous 2K. But it's got the same camera with that super laser autofocus, so it's a relatively high-end device. But it's still weird seeing LG sort of turn into Samsung and releasing all these twists on this one base model. And it's not in the rundown here. But we also just learned about this new G Vista for AT&T, which G Vista launched last month, end of the month on Verizon. AT&T, it's not that weird to see the hardware coming to a new carrier, but it's different. It's a different resolution screen. I mean, it's essentially a different phone. And I don't know, the LG has all of its, I don't know what's a good expression here, all of its marbles in the same...
It may not be firing on all thrusters, is what you're saying.
No.
Yeah. It's weird, and I put it in the headline, because I think it is important to note that, like, we always pick on Samsung for doing this thing, right? It's like, I mean, we have it in the freaking gadgets and hand segment. We have this Galaxy S5 Sport, which is just a Galaxy S5 with a different casing, made as a carrier exclusive on request, and it's like, why do that? But we have other manufacturers starting to do the exact same thing. Even HTC was sort of doing it. It feels like we just escaped this era of every carrier having its own phone, every region having its own stupid little variation. And for like 2 years, it was the golden age where it's like, oh no, it's pretty much the same phone no matter where you get it, with the exception of Samsung changing out the processors and stuff like that. But now we have LG basically just emulating that model, and I don't know that I like it, but I also don't know if it's necessarily a bad business decision. What do you guys think about that? And by you guys, I mean Stephen Shank, and also Taylor's empty chair, which is as quiet as you would expect. So, Stephen, I mean, given what we know about what's happened to Samsung recently, where they're kind of failing to hit their projected numbers, they're not doing as well as they once were. Do you think that is partially a result of something we've been complaining about a lot, the company just flooding the world with endless variations of the same pretty boring-looking devices, or what?
My gut says that's probably not the case here. I would blame Samsung's falling sales on increased competition from the rest of these Android OEMs. And we're not really seeing... It's interesting. You look at the trends, or at least the top manufacturers and what shares of the market they have, and everyone's down to the detriment of Samsung. So it's not just one new player arriving to pick up these sales, because all these little guys is people buying these lower end phones. Some of these Chinese OEMs selling a lot more. Was it Xiaomi is doing ridiculously well lately, and just they're bit by bit tearing away at Samsung's market share. And maybe at the same time, consumers are sort of wising up. Samsung's not necessarily synonymous with Android, and there are other options there if you want to go looking at them. But
yeah. I don't know. Talk about this other device too, this LG G3 Stylus, the phone that absolutely no one was asking for.
It's the weirdest thing. LG releases this video advertising the G3 Beat, and it's a weird video on its own, even without this G3 Stylus bit at the end. But you're right at the end. It's showing just a quick bumper with the G3, the G3 Beat. Then over on the right, there's this phone we've never seen before, the G3 Stylus. And they give a little render of it, spins around. It looks just like a G3, except it might be a little bigger. We're not sure. And it has a little slot in the top, just like, well, on the bottom on the Note, but just like the Note has for an integrated stylus holder. I think we also got that on the recent versions of the LG View. I don't think the original had it, but the View 3 might have had an integrated stylus. We've only seen a small
They made a third View? Really?
Yeah.
Yes, very quickly, in rapid succession.
Oh, dear God. No.
I'm still experiencing...
Like it's going to be an active stylus is the problem.
Yeah.
I wouldn't expect anything like the Wacom panel we get on the Note series. So it's going to have the rounded tip, probably no pressure recognition, but at least have the convenience of holding it right in the device there.
Yeah, like the thing is, this always bothers me because I'm always... it always seems like a fundamental missing of the point. The Note line has not been successful. First of all, it really hasn't been successful because of the stylus. It's been successful because it's been a spec leader and also
The size and the high-end hardware, I'd say.
Exactly. But even that having been said, I am a champion of the S Pen. I like the S Pen, but I don't like the S Pen simply because it's like Samsung decided to bring back this old concept of the stylus. I like it because it works really well. And
some of the cool stuff it does, like when you hover over things and it can detect the pen's presence before you actually tap it to give you different ways to interact with the screen. That's not going to be possible with a simple capacitive stylus. So LG might be missing out on a lot of functionality just by going with the easier hardware.
Yeah, I agree. I'm flipping out a little bit because now suddenly we have two identical Taylor Martins in the podcast.
If you cross your eyes, they go 3D.
Oh, the internet is just a magical time of delight. So I don't think this G3 stylus needs to exist, but I would be interested to know, and I feel like
not even before we get into more opinion on this, it's not even going to be just like a G3 with the stylus. It's also looks like it's going to get a few system downgrades, and it won't be quite the phone the G3 was. So again, it's not just G3 with a stylus, it's this whole new variant LG's introduced to its G3 lineup, further muddying the waters and confusing which phone should I buy.
Yeah, and that's a little frustrating, but I would like sales data on some of LG's stylus-enabled stuff in the past. Obviously, the first-gen View and second-gen one without the integrated stylus, those have their own challenges, but I just wonder if indeed there is some data that they're looking at, some sales data that says, wow, actually these sold surprisingly well, let's bundle in the stylus, or if there's a great amount of demand for this, or perceived demand, or if they are just really randomly cooking stuff up to desperately try to differentiate themselves. And you don't need to do that with the G3 because it's a really solid device unless you remove all of its differentiating factors and replace them with a stylus for no reason. It just strikes me as a very bad idea. I don't know. Let's while we're kind of dancing around Samsung, let's talk about that in a second. But if Taylor is still with us here, I want to ask him if he's got any initial impressions whatsoever of the G3 that he's imported from another nation. But if he's not, then we'll just proceed.
He's either sitting very stoically or he's frozen.
Yeah. Well,
I think I'm frozen. I can hear you guys, but you guys are also frozen on my end.
Now you're moving.
Steve, excuse me, Taylor, why don't you go ahead and terminate your video feed, see if that helps us out at all. And this will be the last we talk about it, so Jules doesn't have to edit any more stuff out for the audio-only version of the show. Let's talk about Samsung. I'm tired of dancing around it. Samsung was initially believed to be bringing something to IFA that would surprise us, but now it's maybe looking like that's not quite as likely, Stephen?
Yeah, there was this very hard-to-comprehend report that came out a little earlier this week out of South Korea, in Korean, as they're liable to do, talking about production on these weird wraparound displays. I've sort of been following rumors in general since we got the Galaxy Round last year, and specifically talking about what we might see with the Note 4. There's been prototypes that we've seen in the past that show how you can display kind of spills over along to the longer edge of the phone. You can have smaller icons down there. I guess the idea, if your phone's laying down, you can still see. Well, there we have it on the screen here for you watching on Hangouts. You could see access apps from the side, or if the phone's turned over. So we heard a report that these might finally be in production, that Samsung was gearing up to do this. And even though IFA's only a few weeks away, it still seemed plausible. If they already had their ducks in a row, they might be able to get production up, start putting these together, and release them maybe sometime in later September. But a second look at the source suggests this might not actually be what's happening. Instead, it's just sort of a trial run of production. Because, wraparound display is going to be tricky to make, and tricky to make over and over in the same quality. And we saw the quality problems with especially the LG G Flex last year. So now the thinking is this might be available, if it is at all, in a super limited edition that might be only in South Korea, because of course they get all the best stuff from Samsung. So maybe we'll have to wait till next year before this is a mass market thing, but at least if we can see it at all, that would be incredible. I'd be happy if we could just get our hands on one of these to try it out.
And as I recall, the Galaxy Round didn't have the display quality issues that the G Flex did. It was curved the other direction, of course, but that wasn't the real point. The thing is, you looked at it, and it actually looked like a quite a good-looking display, as I recall. It just happened to be curved. And if Samsung is capable of implementing that kind of, thing here, especially on a high-profile line such as the Note, I think that would be really nice. That would save us from this soup of iterative upgrades and unexciting developments that we sort of have found ourselves in.
But then again, at the same time, is this really an exciting development? It's interesting because it hasn't been done before, but is it going to add up to a functionally better phone?
No. I don't think so. But I don't think that functionality is necessarily the only thing to focus on. I agree that you need to add utility, but Samsung certainly has added about 50 new features since the Galaxy S3 that do not add any utility to anything. But what they do is give them something to talk about. Now this would be a feature that, even if it was just done for to stand out for gimmick's sake, it would be fun. It would make the phone stand out. It would be a talking point that you didn't have to illustrate with a stupid demo, the move your head to scroll the web page. No, you just hey, look at my phone. It's got a sweet screen that wraps around the side. Look, we live in the future. That's fun.
I'm just wondering how practically this might work. How are cases going to fit on a phone with a wraparound screen like this? Even if you can hook it onto the body of the phone, you're still going to have that glass poking up on top, ready to be scratched and willy-nilly. It could be tricky. I think there might be a little pushback when people realize this might not be the most practical phone.
That's not a bad point, but then again, I don't know if they were to, if they launch it as a separate prototype like the Galaxy Round and then call it, the Galaxy Bend, then yeah, not a lot of people are going to buy it. But if they threw it on the Note 4 and said, if you want the new Note, you're going to deal with this, I think people would be amped on that. I think it's all about positioning, really.
Mm-hmm. And it also depends on how well the display looks. Because if it's anything like
the G Flex, we were talking about that just before you came back. Yeah, if it's anything like the G Flex, you shouldn't compromise the display quality though, and not though. I mean, I agree with you, but we'll have to see. I don't have any faith that this is going to happen though. I think Samsung is still being very conservative with the upgrades it's making to its flagship line, and despite the fact that I think that's played a part in where they are now. Which is not a harrowing place. It's just not as healthy a place as they once were. Does anybody notice that the last time Samsung was really killing it, was really blowing up on the scene, is the last time they did something different with the Galaxy S3?
Yeah, I actually wrote an editorial about that last night.
Mm-hmm.
And saying that it's time for Samsung to get creative again because it is posting low profits, or lower than normal profits, lower than the numbers they've had in, 2 years? It was Q2 estimates,
I saw.
or not estimates, earnings. But Jaime said that was the lowest profits they've had in 2 years, which would date back to their highest point, Galaxy S3, correct?
Well, I guess I don't think that timing exactly works out because they would still be counting profits from the Galaxy S2 at that point. But that was a very popular phone too. But yeah, it's tough to ignore that slight timing lineup just because the Galaxy S3 was my favorite thing to come out of Samsung in a while, and it's because they went so far afield. Partially because of lawsuits goes some of the speculation. They needed to build a phone that didn't look quite so much like the iPhone, but also they had this whole philosophy behind it, and yeah, some of that has resulted in stuff that I've grown to hate since, like the stupid water droplet sound effects and stuff. But it was the nature UX. Like back on the Galaxy S3, that stuff made sense. Like when you tapped and you got a water droplet sound when you tapped the screen, it was because the phone was made to resemble a river stone, and they were pushing this nature
by humans, inspired by nature.
Exactly, and that's fine. I agree that was hokey and tacky and whatever, but it was at least something. And what we've had since then are variations on the same that have gotten progressively less interesting. The S4, I think, was a really boring-looking device and a pretty boring feeling device, boring in almost every respect. The S5 is a chunkier S4 with water resistance that I appreciate, but otherwise it's like, why are we doing this? Why can't you do what you did before, Samsung, and do the thing that made me like you a lot in the first place? I actually carried an S3 willingly for a while. I'm just remembering this now. Like after the
Yeah,
review period
How
ended.
did you live not knowing how fast your heart was beating, though? That must have been.
Yeah, no, a good point. A good point.
I
Life
noted
didn't
at
feel
the
complete without multiple fingertip swipes to get into my phone. Go ahead, Taylor. I'm sorry.
I noted at the end of that editorial that every time I've had to review or compare or use a Galaxy S4 or 5 for any reason, I could not wait to put my sim back in something else because it's just not interesting at all.
Oh, you and me, but we're in the same boat. We should like not be the two lead reviewers here. We need some balance because I'm in the same situation. After I got done with this sport, the last thing I wanted to do was really ever touch it again. God, it's just ugh. Anyway,
It was funny, all this love we're hearing for the Galaxy S3. When I take the bus up to New York City, going through New Brunswick, there's a billboard on the side of I think it's a Metro PCS store, advertising Galaxy S3 in stock. And every time I sort of, facepalm a little, like, guys, you got to get some new advertising material up. But no, clearly there are people out there who are still interested in the Galaxy S3. So
yeah,
Yeah,
I'm interested in the context of that it is like that's a really like old school phone that is no longer a thing. Jules has thrown something up on the old display here. Yes. Jules has highlighted a bit of text from one of our Galaxy S5 reviews. Anyway, moving on. The Apple is largely credited with the Galaxy S3's redesign, and because of that lawsuit speculation I mentioned before. By the way, if anyone has evidence that that's apocryphal, please bring it because I would like to know it. But Apple is going to hold its own event, launching its new smartphone soon. Stephen, you want to tell us when that's going to be, and I'll tell you where I'm going to be for it?
We know when it might be, at least. We've been talking about iPhone 6 going back probably to the beginning of the year in earnest, at least. And there have been all these rumors flying around. Is this going to launch September, October? We're looking at two phones. There could be two launch events. And as we start to close in on the end of summer here, we're narrowing it down. And right now, the most trustworthy rumor to arrive so far suggests that Apple's event is going to be on September 9th, which is just a few days after IFA wraps up. I think that runs 3rd through the 5th or 6th. So this would be right on the coattails. Apple could easily, steal some of the thunder away from announcements out of Berlin. And if this does happen that early in the month, we could see the phone or phones become available maybe just a week and a half later. Talking maybe September 19th. So we could, well be just a little over a month away from having our hands on this new Apple hardware. And this isn't confirmed just yet, but considering how close we're starting to get, I'd imagine to see invites start going out. Maybe not in the next week, maybe the next 2 or 3, but
I'll be sure to watch my mailbox for that particular invite. I'm looking for a reason to be happy about this announcement, but right now I can only be irritated because Taylor and I will each be in an aircraft, the same aircraft, I believe, flying back from Berlin, and we will not be able to even follow this event live if our airplane does not have working internet. So that's a sad day. It'll be like the olden days, Taylor. We will just be out of the loop until we come back, and we'll have to read everyone's live blog after the fact. It'll be very interesting. Consumer interest in the Amazon Fire Phone sounds strong. 98% of respondents indicating they want to buy a Fire Phone yesterday. Am I reading that headline right, Stephen?
You might want to turn that page upside down there. I think it might have that graph might be on the wrong axis there.
Oh, I don't like to laugh at the misfortune of Fire Phone, because I was one of the few people who enjoyed his time with it, even though I acknowledged its many shortcomings. Yeah, Stephen, tell us what the actual numbers are like.
Yeah, so we don't have hard sales figures or anything like that, but an analyst survey conducted among 1,000 potential smartphone buyers asked them about what manufacturers you might be thinking of buying a phone from, also looking at platforms, and the numbers don't look that good for Amazon, with only 5% of respondents saying that, yeah, we would think about getting the Amazon phone. And that's made all the worse by looking at the things that came ahead of that. BlackBerry did in the 6%. And BlackBerry, they still have some interesting phones coming out if you're a very particular type of smartphone user. Amazon's trying to go all mass market with the Fire Phone here, and the fact that it can't get more people interested than BlackBerry or even Windows Phone is able to do does not really speak too highly of the company's efforts to date. Now, it's still early. I mean, the phone has just recently started shipping, so maybe we're being a little too hasty with saying that this phone is dead in the water, but it's not looking particularly good either.
I wouldn't.
all
I wouldn't say
surprised?
we're being hasty. No, it's not that it's not that I think the Fire Phone is a bad product, as I've said before, but it's whenever it starts out this poorly, it tends to continue going this poorly until there's either a massive price slash or a second generation device. But
Yeah, just gonna pull an HTC first and start going free on contract another week from now.
right, yeah, I mean, and that would be. This has the potential to be quite embarrassing, I think, for Amazon, if it does end up going that route. And I wonder if the company will be able to. I wonder if it has the kind of scale, the manufacturing ability, to like pull a Samsung and do what Samsung did with the Galaxy Gear, where it was like 4 months after the Galaxy Gear debuted to
And just drop all new
mixed
hardware?
reviews. Yeah, just drop all new hardware on us.
But I don't think hardware is the problem here, is it?
No. It's certainly not. There's
Yeah.
the price is the fundamental problem, but also you have the challenges of having a foreign ecosystem, which we'll touch on again in a little bit later on this
But I
show.
think if they could fix the price problem, we'd be a lot more forgivable when it comes to the software foibles. If this thing was especially like for Prime, this is what we were talking about last summer, where there was the idea this might be free with a Prime subscription. And the idea being then you buy lots of stuff with the phone, Amazon sort of makes its money, but it's a loss leader. That you could still find some decent success there. Prime is wildly popular, so I feel like they're missing out there. Darn shame.
Yeah, it is a darn shame, and I don't know what to say about it that I haven't already said is the
Yeah.
problem. It's
Beating a dead
just
horse at this point.
yeah, exactly, and it's frustrating, yes, but it's there's nothing we can do but wait to see what the numbers are, and then wait for the inevitable blood in the water stories later when the numbers are not good.
And the fire sale.
Yeah. Oh. Although I should mention here that Pocketnow News team member Rithvik Rao has a Fire Phone of his own
Yeah,
now.
you get started playing around with that.
So that's a pretty cool thing. Jules in the chat is asking if we're going to do a worst devices ever on the Fire
Too
Phone.
soon.
Yeah, too soon, brother. That's cold. Let's talk about another device, a device that might be on worst gadgets ever at some point. The Timex Iron Man 1 GPS Plus smartwatch.
Mean.
It is
Really?
mean. It's really too soon too, and I don't mean to be crappy. I'm sorry, but all right, tell us what this is before I go medieval on it.
Okay, it's another smartwatch, and now that we're getting into this world of smartwatch platforms, iWatch coming out soon, Android Wear, we have apps, we're starting to raise our standards a little bit for what we expect from a smartwatch. So Timex sort of went in the other direction. This was it one Iron Man GPS Plus. It doesn't run any standard platform. It just has its Timex apps on there. But it does have one big selling point that not a lot of manufacturers are offering right now, in that it has its own cellular radio connection. So you don't need to lug along your phone with you, which I think for the market Timex is going after here, that's kind of important, because this isn't a watch that you're going to wear while you're at the office or out with friends and want to respond to. Well, you can respond to emails, but not necessarily getting Google Now updates. Oh, you want to get movie tickets later. This is a Timex Iron Man watch. This is for working out. You don't want to have your phone in your pocket. You don't want to, fall down a muddy hill or something and crush your phone. You want a durable wearable, and this I think delivers. And some of the specs sort of I think reflect that's what Timex is thinking here, because the battery life is not great. We complain about the battery life in normal smartwatches. This guy with the cellular connection, it can be as low as 4 hours. Now that's if you have the cellular radio on, the GPS on, and you're listening to music. So you're pushing it probably as hard as it could go. If you turn off the music, you turn off some of the features, it'll last a little longer, but it seems like we're looking at generally less than a day, which is worse than we're used to from smartwatches.
Wait, I thought they were saying 3 to 4 days. Where did I get that?
Mm-hmm. Standby maybe, but if you have the cellular connection going,
I
that's
see.
8 hours that maxes out.
Which is ridiculous because standby time on a smartphone is, I mean, can be into the weeks. I know we're talking about a much bigger battery, but this ain't a small watch either. I mean,
No, little chunky, and it does have some. It's not as full featured as something like Android Wear would be. You can reply to emails. I'm not clear exactly how that works. We haven't seen if it's voice based or tiny little on-screen keyboard, but it does have some functionality beyond just a simple fitness tracker. And the GPS thing, you can it might be good, if you're a parent or something, you have a kid who's going on, bike rides, and you want to keep an eye on them. They can send a location back to you. So it has very niche uses.
Yeah, but you can do that with one of those things we got pitched on a couple weeks ago, which is just like a little dot sensor that's way cheaper. It's just a button. It's a one button emergency sensor. You don't want to buy your kid necessarily a $400 smartwatch. Now I have a question about the texting thing, Stephen. This has a cellular radio in it, so that means it has an MDN on AT&T or whatever they call it, whatever they call their phone number. And probably an integrated SIM. Did you mention that?
I don't know. I haven't heard the details about the radio. So the one neat thing about this is that it comes with AT&T's service. So you buy the watch, and if you're in the U.S. or in Canada, you have a year's data connection included. But then they're not saying a lot about beyond. They're not saying, can you use this with another carrier? And if you do stick with AT&T, what's it going to cost you after that first year? Are they going to stick you on some big 2 gig a month tablet plan, or do they have something special maybe for this very low data usage watch? We don't have all the details we need to really have a strong.
Yeah, and my question about it is, I think Stefan Constantinescu, who you mentioned earlier, he was talking about this device on his own podcast, The Voicemail, a couple days ago, and he mentioned something about you only being able to text other people with this watch, but I don't think that's the case, or maybe I misheard him, because it just strikes me that this would be
other owners of this same device.
Yeah, that's
useless.
All right, doesn't it? Yeah, but
no, that's not the case.
And now, if they're talking about a data connection, I wonder if the messaging is SMS, or I wonder if it's a text connection, or just an IM essentially. I don't know anything about it.
I think they were talking about email.
No, but when you look at the demo video that Timex is on, it's he's running, and then he gets a text from his wife, and she's like, "My mother's here," and he's like, "Oh no," and he starts running faster, and then he gets another text, and she's like, "Oh, she left with the kids," and he's like, "Smiley time," and then he turns back around, and he taps out a reply, and presumably they have a romantic encounter in the kitchen or something. I
almost forgot my favorite thing about this.
What is your favorite thing about this? The display, yes, is that Mirasol, yeah?
Yeah, it's got that Qualcomm TOC interferometric screen that, in theory, should give awesome battery life, except when you pair it with a cellular radio, you kind of miss out on all those benefits. So
I'm convinced, Stephen, that you only come on this podcast just so you can say the word interferometric from time.
It rolls off the tongue, doesn't it?
No, it does not roll off the tongue.
It's a very Star Trek Voyager type of word, and that's not the last time I will mention that on this podcast. I didn't know what to think about this. I still don't really know what to think about it. I think it's cool that it's water resistant to 50 meters, though. I'll tell you that. That's pretty sweet.
You can find a way to run it.
Just like the rest of their Iron Man products. What were you going to say, Taylor? Sorry?
I said, yeah, because I'm always 50 meters underwater.
Hey, man, you don't know. You don't know what's going to happen. Maybe, you're on that ocean liner that pulls you under. You got to know what time it is exactly.
Isn't that safe or deeper than it's safe for most humans to dive without a pressure suit?
Oh, absolutely.
No, you'll be fine. You'll be fine, and your watch will definitely be fine.
But the watch will survive. So
right.
You can text people, "I'm drowning."
It's one of the features. Yeah, time of death logging.
Ah, lovely.
Does that for you. So yeah, it kind of looks like a Qualcomm TOC. Actually, it's just so big and unwieldy. But since talking about it, this is what a lot of people have been asking for. I'm gonna love to see the comments on these various things. Every time we do a smartwatch piece, someone is like, "Oh, I'm not going to pay attention to these until they can exist independent of my smartphone," which is a position that I do not understand. But here you go. Here it is. And the point I was going to make before is that if it indeed is using SMS, and even if it's not, it has to have its own phone number or its own specific destination for receiving texts. So you cannot just say, text me later. You have to be like, "Oh, I'll be running. I'm not bringing my phone with me. Text me on my watch. Here's my watch phone number."
Google Voice, man.
Yeah. I hear that service works real well.
Yeah, because it's not dead yet, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, now is the perfect
move
time
them
to
on.
hop on Google Voice, everyone. Go get an account.
Yeah.
Let's stop talking about this watch. I want to get one, though.
Before we move on, though, I want to mention we haven't posted about the news yet, but I just noticed in the feeds today while we're getting set up this morning, some news about the Samsung Gear Solo or the rumors about it have popped up. And we've been talking about this earlier. It might be a similar watch from Samsung, having its own cellular radio, but hopefully also being, I don't know how Android Wear would really work with its own cellular connection. So we might be looking more like the Gear 2 or something with a cellular radio. And it might launch at IFA, if not a little sooner. So we might have some more options if you're into the standalone smartwatch experience. So
if the Gear Solo launches at IFA, I will be very, very pleased because that will be another cool thing to cover. It would make sense. That's where they launched the Galaxy Gear just last year, right? Like almost exactly a year ago, the first-gen Gear launched. That's incredible. Seems like an artifact from years past.
Yeah, big old camera nipple.
The camera volcano crater. Let's talk about Windows Phone a little bit.
Yeah.
Windows Phone has picked up, 5 new models? This is one of those headlines that is like happy, sad. Windows Phone picks up 5 new models. What? In developing markets. Oh.
If I just put Vietnam in the headline itself, I know people aren't going to read it, so maybe it's a developing market you care about.
Yeah, Taylor, did you pick up on this news here? Do you know what we're talking about?
I'm seeing it, but that's all. I don't really know much about it.
Okay.
So
these are 3 different manufacturers. This is Xolo, XOLO. Actually, is that the only manufacturer?
Xolo was the Indian one.
Yeah, bringing news of models like what Xolo's been releasing over in India.
This is Q Mobile in Vietnam. So these, first of all, I don't believe these are necessarily original designs because someone mentioned that these are like ones Microsoft is providing, like the Android One thing that Google is going to be doing. And sure enough, some of these phones, they run the gamut from very, very basic WVGA up to not necessarily high-end, but there's a couple 720p models in here and one with a decent tablet-sized screen. The processors, none of them are very good, but one of those two 720p, I believe, is that very same model that we heard about Xolo launching in India, just different manufacturer, but the same basic blueprint, same hardware, basic footprint. So these are very bare bones reference designs, but then at the same time they're very affordable. And Vietnam, oh my God, I didn't even realize how big Windows Phone is over there. It seems like a great opportunity for Microsoft to conquer at least one small market. It's been blowing up over the past few years.
What was the percentage jump? It was really impressive. It was at 6% in 2012 to 15% in 2013, and now 26% earlier this year. That's massive. That's explosive. I wonder
can we
what's
just
driving
say
that. Low price is what it is, but something else. Yeah, Taylor, what?
Can I just say that these are, or at least part of them, are set up for great success. The Storm series, because that's such a great name. All I think of when I hear that is BlackBerry Storm.
Yeah, it's a bit like naming a ship Titanic. Yeah, be careful about that. Might want to give that another few years.
Do they by chance have clickable screens?
Yeah. Oh, that was a good idea, though.
It was a very good idea with really poor execution.
It was.
The problem was that you didn't have to press the screen. It separated. What I really liked about it was it separated selection from action. So you could select something without actually tapping it and doing something.
So it basically implemented a hover functionality, essentially. Except it wasn't you hovering your finger. It was you tapping the screen and to select, or no, tapping the screen to highlight, clicking it to select.
Yeah, it's kind of the opposite of working with a mouse. You can do like command click to select and then click. I don't know.
Right. No.
I'm not making sense, but I loved the idea of separating select from action. So,
me too, which is why I thought it was cool when Samsung decided to port AirView from the stylus-only approach to the finger.
And they dialed up the capacitive sensor distance there.
Yeah, actually, and I don't know. Yeah, whatever the technical implementation was, I thought that it was a cool idea, and I was very excited to try it. And then ultimately, I think it was just a little too wonky in execution for me to actually like it. But
Did did BlackBerry not also, or Research Emotion at the time, acquire Tactus?
Tactus is presumably a tactile interface company.
Yes.
Segway.
Yeah, I was getting there. I was trying to set Michael up, but he just didn't see it. I was
No,
going
it's
off.
you have to remember
Lob
that
swing.
it's I'm
Yeah,
seeing
so Tactus had this display that would actually raise in the areas where you could, interact with it. So the actual display, or not display, but the screen over the display could raise and give you actual tactile feedback on a touch screen.
Yeah, so that is what we're talking about now. Like, this is cool. This is one of the first videos I've seen from Microsoft Research, and it will not be the last. It doesn't necessarily sound like the sexiest thing in the world. It's like, oh, Microsoft Research. I don't know if that's going to be the first thing I click on. Like, it's got a really crappy thumbnail. It's obvious that the woman is in the middle of a word. She's making a dumb face. It's like, come on, position this thing a little bit better. But if you have 4 minutes, watch this video because it is so cool. Microsoft has developed some means of making a touchscreen exhibit a tactile feel. And I said before that would not be the last time I mentioned Star Trek Voyager on this podcast. There was an episode where Voyager was getting beat to hell, and everyone was dying. It was one of those episodes where they hit the reset button at the end of it. They used, time travel to make everything okay, so they were able to kill off everybody. Anyway, they made Tuvok blind. And so he comes to the bridge, and everyone's sad that he's blind. But whatever, he just goes to his station, and he puts his fingers on the control panel, and he's like, "Computer, activate tactile interface." And we don't see what happens, but all of a sudden we're aware that he can operate his controls by feel. And when this episode debuted, probably in '97, I was like, I called bullsh on that so hard. I was like, no, touchscreens, you can't feel touchscreens. That's dumb. But you can feel touchscreens, and it is radical face.
How does that
like
probe
the band.
So-
Michael?
What?
I haven't watched.
Oh, it tastes. It needs to be cooked a little more.
Hmm.
You haven't watched the video.
I haven't tasted. I haven't watched this video with audio. I just kind of watched it just now. How does it differ from just haptic feedback?
All right.
Which
So
is-
yeah. I can tell you exactly how this differs because it's freaking awesome. This is my favorite part of the news thing right now. They use two methods to do it, and the more common one is piezoelectric. So what they do is they rip off the display glass, but they don't just put piezoelectric actuators somewhere in the phone. Like, it's not like a vibration motor that just exists centrally in the phone and vibrates the whole phone when you hit the keyboard. The actuators can be positioned underneath the keyboard itself, and sometimes, as they did with the type cover for Surface, they can position them under the buttons themselves, so that when the touchscreen detects the contact of your finger, a voltage spike is sent through the actuator that very temporarily and very minutely changes the shape of the glass. Like, it actually does change the shape by a few microns or something for a few microseconds. But that little bit is just enough to give you the sense that the screen has a physical, embodiment to it, which is
Not just you're
pretty
feeling
awesome.
the phone shaking, that it's doing something. It's responding directly to your touch where you're touching it, and that it's not just you're feeling vibration. There's a tactile. It feels like a different material almost. It feels smoother, or you can feel a little bump. But
Yeah, well, actually, that's the different one. So
that's the other
that
one. That's the electrostatic. I didn't
yeah.
watch the video.
Yeah. So the piezo, they do the piezo in a couple different ways too. And the one they're showing in the thumbnail with the checkerboard is like a big old piezoelectric rig built around a Lumia 920 or something, and that vibrates the entire phone. So obviously they need to find a way to minimize this because otherwise you're carrying around a shoebox. But it vibrates the entire phone at a constant rate, and when the touchscreen detects your fingers on certain points of the touchscreen, it changes that rate of vibration based on where your finger's located. So that's how it can do that. That's kind of like the weird lab version, the hinky lab version that,
Yeah. Is this technology going to come in a 6-inch by 6-inch cube
But so the last
prototype devices?
the last implementation though is the static what's it called? It's not static electric. It's electrostatic method.
601.
Yeah, so where the woman in the video explains that the fluid in your finger is negatively charged, the transparent conducting layer under the display activates a variable positive charge. So what that means is when your finger gets close to the screen, the display can actually temporarily create a magnetic attraction between your finger and the display itself, thus changing the apparent texture of the display, because the resistance changes based on, you know, how quickly you can or can't move your finger over the glass. It is awesome. All of it is awesome. I want all of it right now.
And that electrostatic one's a lot more compact than the vibraphone there.
It does look more
when they
compact,
showed
yeah.
off.
Although I imagine, and maybe this is just me being stupid, but I imagine that these are all going to be a pretty horrible hit on battery life. But what a cool thing! You know, you can, with this stuff, you can make a touchscreen feel like a physical object that's more than just a cold sheet of glass. I think that's awesome, and it would be really great if Microsoft would eventually, you know, actually use some of the stuff from its research labs instead of just.
Well, yeah. What is
showing
it?
off.
We might
Goodness,
see
excited.
something along these lines, maybe even next year.
Yeah, 2015. They were saying they were going to try and shoot for. I mean,
It's optimistic, but
it does, doesn't it?
You can also unintentionally do this with the G Flex.
In what way?
Raise the display in certain parts.
Oh, you're such a jerk face. Oh, clicky screens is something we're going to come back and talk about. But in the interim, I think it's time, you know, while we have Taylor basically here 85% of the time, thanks to his wonderful internet service provider in beautiful rural America, why don't we hit this gadgets in hand segment real quick? Jules, let's transition into gadgets in hand. This is a segment about living vicariously. Everyone, please use the Q&A feature. Submit questions about the Blackphone or the Galaxy S5 Sport, which I have here in my hands, or Taylor's LG G3 and AT&T, or presumably the other LG G3, even though I don't think Taylor's even managed to hit it much. Sounds like Taylor's rummaging
out of the box now.
Box. I was wondering what you were doing. You're doing a little live unboxing for us, Taylor Martin.
Well, I mean, I could.
No,
you might only catch like 3 frames of it. But...
No, it's okay. I don't know. I don't want to watch it. I want you to describe the feeling of unboxing an LG G3 that I bet looks a whole lot like the ones we're used to. And while
looks
Taylor,
exactly like the other one.
Yeah, it does, I'm sure. And while you do that, I want to make mention of a little problem that I have. I'm developing a hold that up. Taylor's got 2 batteries in the box. Is that right?
Yeah. What? The South Korean version I came with also came with 2 batteries in the box, the quad beats, and a battery charger.
Earbuds, and the separate battery cradle for that separate battery. Now, I think there's conflicting reports on this, but I believe South Korean carriers, or at least some of them, are required to, or just by practice do include 2 batteries in the box.
That should be a
Galaxy
thing
S5
everywhere.
Prime came with those. Yeah, and it is sometimes. In the States, it only tends to happen when a manufacturer is basically owning up to the fact that their battery life sucks. With the Galaxy Nexus on Verizon, you could send away for like a $20 extra battery or something because its battery life was atrocious.
What was that? The Echo. The Echo shipped with 2 batteries because
the Kyocera Echo,
battery life was like 4 hours.
Oh, that's another thing I was going to mention before. Speaking of Kyocera, there are some outlets out there, I believe, doing reviews on the Kyocera Brigadier right now, the world's first sapphire-screened smartphone.
Well, affordable, at least.
Yes, right. The world's first one not made by Virtue. And the deal with that is we said we didn't have the time to do a full review initially, but they are going to send us the VIP kit later on, full of items in the box with which to try to damage the Sapphire display. Yeah, like
that's what I want to see.
Brillo and like rocks and stuff. I wonder how they're going to ship this.
Steel wool.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun.
Well, if we do compare these, there's a very noticeable difference under the battery door. That's really the only physical difference you're going to see minus branding.
Under the battery door of the LG G3 for AT&T and the LG G3 LTE category whatever, there appears to be, category 6, there appears to be an additional SIM slot? No, that's a memory card slot. There is a hardware disparity between these models under the hood, and for the first time, maybe ever this show, one of Taylor's connectivity issues has given us a nice freeze frame right on these devices. So this is perfect.
That was planned.
Oh,
you're welcome.
Well, let's get to answering some questions here. Taylor's going to move into those LG G3s, and that's going to be cool. The first question I have is from Jaunty Gamau, or Jaunty, not Jaunty, although if you would like to sing a jaunty tune amongst yourselves, you may. How secure exactly is the Blackphone? Is it actually as good as they say?
7.
Wow. We do not have a review scheduled for this device until next week, so Joe Levi and I have been getting to know this device as well as we can, and it is an extraordinarily loaded device in terms of security features, Jaunty. Everything on this phone requires a password, a separate password. When you power it on, it prompts you for a PIN. When you enter any of the secure hubs, it asks you for separate pins and key phrases. When you are having a Silent Circle text exchange with someone else who also has a Silent Circle app or also has a Blackphone, the app generates one-time only encryption passphrases that you can use to verify between each other to verify that you're actually talking to who you think you're talking to. It just does this with the calls, too, when you set up a silent call.
That's just for the key exchange, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
This sounds like Windows Vista of phones, the way you're describing it.
Yeah, it's not quite that. It's not like every time you try and do something, it's like, are you sure you want to do this? You might open yourself up to vulnerabilities. It's much more like being on a ballistic missile submarine and having communications with the president about whether to launch nuclear missiles. Because
Bong, are you sure you want to close the window? Bong, are you really, really sure?
No.
Bong. I just want its voice to have
not like that at all. It's seriously
with
like,
a Russian accent.
Here's your one-time encryption key. Do you want when you're sending a text, you're given the option to make the texts self-destruct, and you're given the option to make them self-destruct in a specified time between 1 minute and 1 day. And you can watch them just kind of fizzle out after your specified time. That stuff is really, really cool. You can't take screenshots inside a lot of the apps. The functionality just isn't there. There's a lot of security stuff here. So in terms of quantity of features, it's a one-of-a-kind unit, certainly. Yeah, Taylor, did you have a question?
If you breach one of the protocols within the phone, does it self-destruct like Mission Impossible style?
Yeah, it starts a 30-second countdown, and the smoke starts pouring from the USB port, and you have to throw it as far away as you can. Yeah. But
yes.
The thing is,
best phone ever.
All of these security features make the phone a little unwieldy, so we'll talk a little bit more about that. We'll see if we can move on to the
security, right? It's always the trade-off.
It is true. Blackphone, says Zach. Hello, Zach Schmeezing. Zach, I've never known how to properly pronounce your last name. I'm sorry. Blackphone seems pointless, Zach says. My dad works for the government, and his work phone is a Lumia 925. Wow, that's interesting to hear. I didn't know government did that. Before that, from oldest to newest, he had a BlackBerry a whole bunch of Blackberries. Okay. This is not a question, Zach. I didn't know this before I selected it, but thank you for sharing. I appreciate it.
Read it with that inflection. BlackBerry C10?
I think that here we go. This is from Brendan Pfeiffer. But Zach, before I read this next question, I want to mention that you're not alone in saying that. Many people in the comments have had the same feeling that Blackphone seems pointless. I don't think it is. It's certainly not perfect. It is in many ways a first-generation product, but it is also the only way that I know of to have all of these security features wrapped up in one package. You can do a lot of this with software, but the fact that it comes out of the box with a lot of the stuff enabled and kind of sort of holds your hand through setting some of it up is going to be compelling to at least some people. This is from Brendan Pfeiffer. Many smartphones, when switched off, still keep their connection to the phone provider's network in the background. Thus, physically removing the battery is the only way to truly power off the phone. When switching off a Blackphone, is it truly off? Really good question. I do not know yet. I would imagine that this would be part of the security suite in the Blackphone. But also, I'm not sure that's true.
Yeah, I was not aware of that. I've been stretching here. I just pulled out my frequency counter, see if I can figure out what my phone is broadcasting when it's turned off.
Good call, man. Yeah, I don't think that you can say that many smartphones still keep a connection to the operator network in the background when they're powered off. I've
Yeah, but
heard
the
of.
radio does run its own little processor, and it's that code that we can never see, so it's not the craziest idea. It doesn't seem like a very smart one either, though.
Yeah, I don't. I don't know. I've certainly heard about this. I've heard about means through which various government agencies can force this behavior to happen with hardware modifications or even just software modifications in some cases. But I wouldn't. I don't think it's true that many smartphones talk to the network after they're powered off. But we will see what we can find out about that. I'm going to ask Joe to break out, because Joe Levi has a Blackphone too. We'll ask him to break out his 18-foot ham radio antenna. See if he can detect any long-wave transmissions. Oh, Zach, I got your name right. Good. I'm glad to hear that. Who is more secure between the new Blackphone and BlackBerry smartphones, asks Marvin Kayoya. That's a good question. That's a question a lot of us are going to be asking. We just unboxed the Blackphone, I think, yesterday, and I think it was last night, folks. And I want to answer why I don't have the answers to a lot of these questions yet. Is because setting up a phone for which security is its main selling point is a lot like setting up a Windows mobile phone from 2004. You cannot. Nothing is effortless. Email synchronization has to be manual. There's no Google Suite at all, so you can't set up a Gmail app and just sort of go that way. Like I say, every time you set up one of these new security hubs, you have to pick a new passphrase, encryption stuff. And all of these rely on back-end services to be working properly. And frankly, the Silent Circle stuff that we've been trying out has not been terribly reliable today. Mm-hmm. So it is not that I am unprepared for the show. It's just that the phone seems to not have been prepared for me. So we're going to address all of that in the review next week. And I should mention, we are going to give one of these away, too, with GSM Nation. And I will say that GSM Nation gives us this summer of giveaways. I'm going to see if I can find another Q&A here. I'm also going to try and and see if I can find a Q&A on the S5 Sport, though I don't think there are many.
So we're getting great response about the Blackphone, though. People are paying attention to what we want to be talking about here.
Yeah, Thomas Mihailovic asks, do you think the Blackphone is for everyone, or will it be successful only for a very niche market? Really good question. Really good answer. Maybe. I don't know. Depends on whether you like this answer or not. This is a niche device. I don't think there is a huge market out there for people who absolutely need encryption keys when they talk to people on the phone, But that being said, there's nothing wrong with building a product for a niche market. I love niche devices when I am in the particular niche that they are trying to serve.
I feel like Blackphone is responding to a consumer demand that the consumers don't necessarily want. I mean, looking back at the news more than the past year now, privacy and computer security have been big issues. People hear about this and they say, well, I want someone to do about it. And yes, Blackphone's doing that. But the solutions that are tenable are not necessarily ones that we want to accept. Like you're saying, the setup is really annoying, and just ongoing use of it is going to require a lot of diligence on the user's side. So while Blackphone's responding to this demand, I don't think people necessarily know what they're getting into when they say, I want a secure phone. That's a huge commitment.
It is a lifestyle change.
Yeah, exactly. You can't be the type of person who's posting everything to Twitter and Facebook and then at the same time say, I want all my communication to be secure. It doesn't.
That's exactly right.
Venn diagram with separate bubbles.
No, you're absolutely right. It is a total shift in thinking, and buying a Blackphone is, if you need secure communications, or if you think you want secure communications, you shouldn't think that you're just going to buy a Blackphone, take it out of its box, throw your SIM in, and then, oh sweet, my communications are secure. Your entire means of communication change, and often different security methods work at cross purposes. I use Google two-step authentication on all my Google accounts, work, personal, everything, and that step actually makes synchronizing with Blackphone much, much harder, because it requires you to generate one-time security keys from Google and then manually set up like an IMAP sync schedule or an IMAP sync relationship from Blackphone to Gmail, and I still haven't gotten that to work with the work account. Like, it's just so freaking frustrating. So this is something that requires a lot of effort. All right. Does the Blackphone have the Play Store, or was that replaced by a Silent Circle app? This question is from Sean Faria. It does not have the Play Store. It doesn't have Hangouts. Doesn't have Gmail. It doesn't have any of the services that the Google services that require the Google Services framework, because this is not actually an Android phone. It is running a fork of I believe the AOSP called Private OS, private without the E at the end.
Now, do you think you're going to be more harsh to Blackphone than you were to Amazon in regards to not being tied into Google and having its own Android fork? Because with Amazon, it seems like the company doing that in spite of what it needed to. Amazon could have delivered an Amazon-centric phone that was still very integrated with Google. Whereas Blackphone, I guess it's more of a requirement to really deliver the security they're looking for. You kind of have to back away from Google's servers and take your information out of the picture there. So do you think that you'd be as judgy about that?
So that's a good question, right? No, and you no, because the point you make, the instant counterpoint to that is very valid. No, you sort of, when you are privacy focused, Google is not going to be or should not be at the foremost of your list of communications providers. However, it is harder to live with on the Blackphone because, as you may have noticed from the unboxing, which isn't just an unboxing, we do the initial setup too in that. It looks exactly like stock Android because Private OS is basically just a forked version of Android, and there's no skin on top of it. So you feel like you're in stock Android, but then you're like, oh wait, where is all the Google services? Oh, that's right. So it's kind of like a constant tease, and I'm looking forward to getting over that. But it's certainly a reminder. One item of note: the Blackphone comes with absolutely no even alternative app store. So if you want an app store on there at all, you have to sideload the Amazon App Store.
Hey, apps are just security vulnerabilities waiting to happen. And you just web browser, email client, that's all you need.
One of the nice things, though, is that the persistent Google search bar is obviously not there, but it's been replaced with a private search bar. By the way,
is that one of those ones that uses Google through a anonymizing proxy, or is it a fully different search?
Yeah, I want to mention that every time I pick up the Blackphone, I have to get back into it. I have to re-enter my PIN, which just infuriates me to begin with. But there's also.
How you have your normal phone set up?
No, I hate pins. I really do. But I'm not wearing my tattoo anymore either, so I have. What I was going to say was there is a maybe quarter-second delay between hitting each of the numeric buttons and feeling the haptic feedback.
Oh.
And it's just so tiny little irritation that's so frustrating.
It's interesting you just mentioned that tattoo a second ago. I'm wondering if the Blackphone experience and this constant entering passwords, authenticating every little change you make might be a really great fit for some sort of, maybe not a tattoo, but a ring or just some authentication thing that's on your person that the phone could sense.
Oh yeah, like back in the day when BlackBerry actually championed a lot of that stuff in like 2005 even. You could wear a little work dongle on your work badge or whatever, and it would talk to your BlackBerry via Bluetooth. It was like, it was, what's it called? The Motorola thing? Trusted devices. It was like trusted devices except 10 years ago. So when I search in the search bar, it's the, what is it? It's called disconnect search, the fastest and most secure way to search privately. So it's a widget that lives up there. You can actually just go to search.disconnect.me and decide what search vendor you want to use in a little drop-down list between Bing, Yahoo, DuckDuckGo, and Bleco. I've never heard of Bleco, but that's pretty cool. And there is cool stuff in here.
Google's power and all of their results without giving your information to them.
Exactly. You don't have to it doesn't just do something stupid like default you to Bing or something, call that secure, you know what I mean?
Ask Jeeves.
So, yeah. Mackenzie Honeck asks what Android version does the Blackphone have? It's actually private OS, as I mentioned before, and
do we know what it's worked off of?
Good question. Probably, I don't know, and I don't want to say because I'll be wrong, but it's at least Ice Cream Sandwich because the interface is exactly that. It might be Jelly Bean. Still searching through the old Q&A app here. We'll answer a couple more of these before we go on.
Here it says it's a forked version of KitKat. So.
Of KitKat? Oh, very good. All right.
Person is.
Excellent. Yeah, who is the actual manufacturer of the Blackphone? Exle Rants asks. That's a really good question.
PNSA. Ooh.
Hey! No, actually, no, it's not. The good question that I had before was who makes the Fire Phone for Amazon, but sorry, that was in the buffer from when we were still talking about the Fire Phone.
Mm.
The Blackphone is a collaboration between Silent Circle and Geeks Phone, I believe. Do you know anything about Geeks Phone, Steven?
Yeah, I think Geeks Phone, that Spanish company that made some of those early, I want to say, Firefox OS devices, they've always been down with playing with these not quite mainstream operating systems. So this seems right up their alley.
Geeks Phone is a Spanish smartphone company founded in 2009. Yeah, they're in Madrid. Their most notable products are indeed open Android phones and developer devices of Firefox OS.
There we go.
Yes, indeed. And yeah, Blackphone, smartphone, private OS, and then it's got the thing. Pre-order from 24 February 2014. I should mention here that this comes to us from GSM Nation, so if you want your own, go to gsmnation.com. We'll answer one or two more questions. Looks like we've lost Taylor permanently, so that's a real shame, because we wanted to talk a little bit about that G3. We're not going to be able to do it. That's all right. We'll have him on next week. We'll talk about the G3. How ironic would a white Blackphone be? Indeed.
Wop wop.
One more question to close out our Blackphone portion of the podcast. Do you see phones like the Blackphone becoming more frequent or popular? Asks Adam Faulkner. In a way, this is sort of like we talked about before, Stephen, where this is not exactly a phone for everyone, not by any means a phone for everyone. Then again, if the flagrant and offensive invasions of privacy by private and government forces alike continues, then yes, this will be an ever popular segment, and it will be a segment ripe for ownership and total domination by the first company that manages to get privacy and user friendliness together in the same damn package.
But that, I'm not sure, is going to happen, because we've seen privacy-focused communication systems around going back a decade or more. I remember PGP Phone was an early VoIP-based system you could use over a dial-up modem. And it offered very good security, but it never really caught on, and I think it's because it uses these same sort of problems that you were mentioning. When you set up a call, you and the party you're calling have to each read a list of phonetic NATO alphabet keywords to make sure that there's no man-in-the-middle attack or anything. The situation hasn't gotten any better in the 15 years since then, despite advances in cryptography. The underlying algorithms may improve, but how we have to interact with them in order to adopt them for voice communications, I don't know that that's going to become this very easy just click and it works type system. You're always going to have to be, unless there's some big change that's completely unforeseen now, you're always going to have to be putting up with a lot of crap, basically, to get the security you're looking for. So I don't know that that's going to be something a company can bring.
That's that's a good point, Stephen. But every time I think along those lines, I always think that this has always been the case with everything. Not to be too broad about it, but this has always been the situation where it's like, no, these are fundamentally incompatible things. You cannot bring them together. And then invariably someone comes along who's able to do it. And I think the company that figures this out will just rake in the dough.
Yeah,
Whether that
please prove me wrong. I welcome this.
Yeah, no, but you're making really good points. I think with current technology, certainly it's very, very difficult. But we'll have to see. And otherwise, you can just buy some cipher books, use some cipher rings.
Just everything one-time pad. That's the way to go.
Yeah, exactly. One-time pad, just like and numbers stations. We're going to communicate entirely by shortwave. If you are having a difficult time sleeping at night, don't look up numbers stations on YouTube and don't listen to them. You'll never sleep again. Galaxy. Anybody asking about the Galaxy? Yes. This is a question from Pocketnow, so all right. Do you think the Galaxy S5 Sport and the Active will receive even close to the same amount of support or updates as the S5? Is that a major con, in your opinion? The major con is that there's not enough differentiation for these things to even exist. The S5 Active is the device that I would probably recommend over the Sport, just because it brings mil-spec durability on paper, as we've figured out in the video. You can just basically slap it around a little bit and it really hates you, and then it'll break. So it's not as durable as it says it is, but the Sport is just brings things to a new level of uselessness because it's the same exact device.
But it looks a little different.
It looks a little different, and it has wallpapers that featuring pictures of athletes with superimposed over the top of their chest, push through the wall.
I forget, does the Sport have that extra hardware button that the Active does?
Nope, it doesn't have anything. It doesn't have anything that the stock S5 doesn't, and in fact has a couple things less. It lacks the fingerprint scanner, which sucks anyway, and the USB 3.0 port. And it just has so much Sprint bloat on it and everything. So anyway, I think we want to move on. Stephen, I want to take your poll for a moment, if you would not mind indulging me in a question. Mm-hmm. What would you think about moving Tough Spot to next week? Because with a two-person podcast, I don't think there's enough diversity of opinion. What if we just jumped right into listener mail? How would you feel about that?
Fine by me, man.
Good. I am pleased. In that case, I will ask Jules to forgo the Tough Spot music.
He had the music all lined up, man.
I know, he was all set. It was all... Oh, it's just so sad. He's already got the card lined up. Thank you. Jules, sound the chime for listener mail. Thank you very much.
It's underwhelming.
No, it's not. It's a WebOS chime. You must.
I stand by my assessment.
All right. You know what? Thanks, Jules. That's the thing. You just have to sound something else another time. We got an invitation just now. I was going into my mailbox to look for the listener mail, and I found an event invitation that I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about on the air yet. So, Stephen, would you mind terribly reading the first piece of listener mail you come to, and I will get back to you? Thank you.
We have a message here from Jason Tam. Jason says, "Hey, Pocketnow, love the show and everything you guys do, but I'll get straight to the point." Thank you, Jason. "Would you be interested in the idea of a modular smartwatch? Something like Project Ara for wearables. You'll be able to switch out screen shape, battery size, camera, screen resolution. You get the point. Thanks to keep doing what you do, Jason." This is a great idea. I think it's completely infeasible. It's not feasible. I mean, with smartwatches now, we're already at the place where I think we're pushing the hardware about as far as it can go from an engineering standpoint of cramming all this stuff in there. I look at the Moto 360, where they couldn't even get the completely circular display. I know we harp on this, and it's probably going to be a minor issue functionally, but there are just, when you're cramming all this high-end hardware into a tiny, tiny space, you still need a battery in there. You are using every cubic millimeter that you can get. And when you start switching to a modular design, that adds a lot of extra room for things. You need enclosures around everything. You need contacts. Anytime you have even just spring-loaded magnetic contacts, that's going to take up more space than a nice compact wired soldered connection. So it'd be awesome. It'd be the size of a brick strapped to your wrist, but I mean, miniaturization, maybe 5-10 years optimistically down the road, that sounds like a good idea. Absolutely. I mean, who doesn't want more options when it comes to their devices? But practically, I would not hold your breath waiting for this. What do you think, Michael?
I'm completely with you on that, Stephen. I realize I just got done saying that nothing is impossible and everyone should always strive to push the boundaries. But when you're talking about a wearable, I think modularity, and by the way, this is not just a theoretical discussion. Isn't there a firm that's actually starting the basement level of work on this on smartwatches? Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but
well, they're already kind of modular. If you can switch the straps out, you just have to build on that.
You can switch, right, and I mean, I actually do think that kind of modularity is compelling because we were talking about that one watch last week that may or may not be vaporware, but the compelling notion about that was that the battery would be a flexible one built into the band, and if that were the case, you could feasibly carry additional bands with you and hot swap them on the go to basically replenish the battery. What if we just
had like a single smartwatch module that's sort of kind of like the when Apple did those iPod Nano based wrist straps, where you have this, it doesn't have a watch body to it, it's just the hardware, the screen sort of pops into. You could either have a nice adorable plastic body, get some fancy gold one and put it in there. I could see that happening a lot sooner than one that lets you choose individual components like screen or adding a cellular radio. I think that if this does happen, that's how it's going to.
Indeed, I completely agree. Jules has thrown up a little capture on the screen here called blocks, which is a
Is this the
obviously
one
a
you were
render.
mentioning?
Yeah, very possible here. So, we'll be able to talk about this. Yeah, this is actually legit. This has been covered by. Imagine being able to choose various blocks for
Oh,
cutting.
that works if you're using the strap as the modules. Yeah.
Oh, very fast. So it's like a
That's
metal link
cheating.
strap with different modules. That's pretty damn cool. Except this
Oh,
is only a render. It's called Blocks, folks. If you want to look it up, I think it's just spelled traditionally Blocks. But if you just search Blocks Watch, I'm sure it'll
this is
pop
ringing a
up.
bell though. I feel like another company had some prototype. I want to say it was Nokia or something along this line. It was really chunky. It was like a bracelet more than a watch, but this is ringing some bells.
Chooseblocks.com is the URL. Sorry to interrupt you there. It's chooseblocks.com. And it is ringing a bell with me too, Stephen. Like there was some crazy stuff. I thought it was Project Ara though, or I thought it
Not
was
found it here. Nokia
someone.
Facet.
The what? The
It
gift
this was
gift
like
basket?
7 iPod Nanos hooked together in a giant bracelet.
Oh right, that was
Yeah.
Nokia, wasn't it?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, whatever. I mean, these concept things are great. I just get so burned out on them because it's like it's that same tease we were talking about before. It's like, oh sweet, yeah, that would be really rad, and either the end result looks nothing like it, or the end result never materializes, and it's like, all right, whatever. Bother me when you've got a frickin' product. That's why the Moto 360 excites me so, because when it landed
Exactly.
in March, it was like the news story was like Motorola designs round smartwatch, and my very first impulse was to be like, bullshit. And this is a render and whatever. And when I realized it was real, yeah, when we verified that it was real, I just like that was just really cool. So that segues nicely into another piece of listener mail from Ed Carden, good friend of mine, who I always love to hear from. He says, "Hey guys, I like to listen to your show while performing yard work. Anyway, as far as wearables go, every week I hear at least one of you utter something to the effect of, 'We'll see what happens when the Moto 360 is released.' My question is simply, what if the Moto 360 sucks? Do you think this will be a huge setback for Android Wear devices and or smartwatches in general? How important for the wearable space is the success of the Moto 360? Most sincerely, your Ed Carden."
Hmm.
We mentioned this a little bit, or I did during the Android Wear review when I was saying that if the Moto 360 had landed with the LG Watch and the Gear Live, I may have been a little bit more forgiving of the platform because then it would have had some truly unique hardware to set it apart. I think that's the fundamental benefit of the Moto 360 is it shows that a manufacturer with enough will and expertise can craft a device that, at least so far, from what we've seen, not in person, it looks like it's not only pushing the boundaries but also accomplishing this feat of creating a usable and beautiful device all in one. If that turns out not to be the case, I think it'll amplify the already really irritating problems of the Android Wear platform. Like I say, I'm still wearing this Gear Live pretty much every day. I really like a lot of it, and I wear it every day because I'm done with the review. But we bought this device, and it could just be sitting in a drawer somewhere, but it's not because I really like it. I don't like Android Wear in its current implementation because it's just not. It's straight up not reliable. There will be times when I'll spend half a day in it, everything's going great, and I'm getting notifications, and then for the rest of the day, the watch just decides I'm not going to vibrate for you anymore. And I'm like, really? And it's like, yeah, I'm not going to give you any notifications of your messages until you reboot me for no reason. And this happened on the G Watch too. It's a platform thing. It's not a hardware thing. Android Wear is just so damn undercooked that it's so frickin' frustrating. So if Google can fix that software quickly enough for the Moto 360 not to land with a big wet thud, then it'll be wonderful. But if the Moto 360 itself sucks, that's just going to make all the problems in Android Wear seem a lot worse.
I think it's important that you're talking about the platform as much as you are here, because if the 360, just crashes and burns, that's going to be an Android Wear issue, not necessarily one for smartphones or smartwatches in general, because you have to remember we still have this iWatch waiting in the wings. We haven't seen any very reliable picture of what it's going to look like. We've heard a lot. it could blow us away. Apple has a way of doing that and just surprising us in these wonderful ways. So the 360 could fail in a couple different ways. The hardware could be less impressive than we're seeing. This recent leak showed, yeah, the metal back's going to happen. It's still kind of plastic and chunky along the body itself. Not everyone's going to love it. So if it fails on that side, it'd be a problem for Motorola. Maybe we're not going to like how Android, I mean, we already had issues with Android Wear, but we don't have any experience with it on a circular screen. And yeah, it was designed from the get-go with the circular interface in mind, but it might not be as elegant as the already kind of rough Android Wear. So maybe it could be a failure for the circular version of the platform. And then maybe it's just driving us to iWatch. So there's a few different ways this could go badly. In no case do I think it's going to, kill the smartwatch momentum that we've been seeing recently. Yeah, we're hyped about it, but they'll be the next big thing right after it anyway. I mean, you know how these things go. We get all laser focused on one device, it arrives, and what's next? We got to find the next thing. So
yeah, I should mention that too. Just because I feel like I came down pretty negatively at the top of this question. I want to say that if Android Wear's bugs were settled and its usability issues, its interface was made a little bit more intuitive, I would actually really love it. And the fact that I can put up with Android Wear on the Gear Live, which I actually think is quite attractive hardware, but it's really nothing special. It's something that's just like, oh, wow. Reinforces my existing contention that sort of no matter what the Moto 360 looks like it's going to be, I'm going to buy one because it is going to be the most just amazingly cool hardware with it's just pressing all the right geek buttons for me with the wireless charging, the round watch face, the fact that it's from Motorola and probably one of the last devices of a Lenovo free Motorola. It's basically a perfect storm of sheer nerdy desire. So Ed, if it sucks, I'm going to be really sad.
Yeah, it's really been being built up like that. It's going to just destroy you, man.
It basically can't help but disappoint.
Yeah.
Stephen, would you like to read the last piece of listener mail to bring us home? I believe this one's going to be from Greg Vogt.
Here we go. Greg writes, with sales of Windows Phone still a fraction of that of Android and iOS, and recent talk that Microsoft should ditch the Windows Phone platform and switch to Android, do you believe that if Windows Phone gained the ability to run Android apps like BlackBerry 10 does, that it would gain wider acceptance in the marketplace and better be able to compete with Android and iOS? Thank you as always for insightful reporting, Greg.
Greg, this is it's a good question. It's an old question, but it's one we haven't had in a while. Stephen, did you read the story recently that the Windows Phone, I believe, has just recently exceeded 300,000 apps?
No, that doesn't sound like a very big number, but growth is growth.
No, I mean, it is. It's a very big number considering they were just at 100,000 not too long ago.
How many of those are throwaway repackaging of existing apps? It does one thing, it shows a couple wallpaper photos. Now that Windows Phone has wallpapers, but how many are real apps that people care about?
Well, you could ask the same question about the
but then
strong iOS and Android apps. I think the ratio
million to start with versus 300,000.
I think the ratio is not as favorable. I agree with you. But by the way, this news it is confirmed. This is being reported on by everyone. So PC World, CNET, GeekWire, and so on. I have been surprised of late in the good way, particularly with things like Uber, like things that are hip, not just like, hey, another top-down shooter is getting Xbox Games branding. It's like, who gives a shit? But like, I'll look for Uber. I'm like, I really need to grab a cab. Oh crap, Uber is in the Windows Phone store. That's really awesome. You know what I mean? So I think that is the future. Like, if Windows Phone was at 10,000 apps right now, I would say, yeah, this is something we should totally think about as a stopgap solution like these other platforms have done. But even then, I would say that's not the way forward. Look at the staggering lack of success BlackBerry has had despite offering a very, very capable port structure or whatever. It's not an emulator, but it is an emulator, right? I forgot. I wrote about it in the review. You can go read about it back when I knew what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. But modern BlackBerries run Android apps pretty damn well, and that's not helping them.
I think that the big difference between Windows Phone and BlackBerry is BlackBerry needed its platform to succeed. Windows Phone does not need to start doing a lot better. Microsoft has the capital to just keep Windows Phone going for an indefinite period of time until Android gets sued by Apple into non-existence. They can just wait for all the other players to go away, and Microsoft will still be backing Windows Phone. It's going to be like Xbox, where it just pours money into it for a decade, and then eventually it starts paying off. I don't
Maybe.
see that Microsoft needs to. That would be a drastic step and kind of shameful almost, admitting that, oh no, this isn't going to work. Microsoft doesn't need to do that. I can't see it happening.
Yeah, weren't we talking? Didn't we touch on this last week? Where there was some speculation. Yeah, we did. In fact, there was some speculation that was reblogged by BGR. It was from ZDNet about a possible outlet or a possible exit ramp for Microsoft on Windows Phone, and certainly stories like today's with the app. I didn't realize the App Store had 300,000 titles in it. To me, that's a very big number considering where they were at this point last year. I don't know what the percentage of the growth rate is, but a lot is uncertain right now with Microsoft's new CEO, the board having been reshuffled, and the fact that oh God, oh yeah, the Nokia acquisition. Like, we're still suffering through all these waves of change, and we have to let all that settle. We have to let everything kind of congeal back into a sense of stability before we can really read the tea leaves and mix a few more metaphors and determine where Microsoft is going to go with Windows Phone from here on out. Because for me, I would not be surprised by any outcome at this point. Microsoft sticking with Windows Phone for the next 10 years until it's actually a viable competitor in things besides third world markets or developing markets rather, and B, Microsoft deciding tomorrow that, you know what, we're going to cut our losses and leave Windows Phone behind. I wouldn't be surprised by either outcome, but that's kind of a cop-out answer, but it's the truth. I don't know what to expect from them. So.
But you don't see this Android move as being particularly likely?
No, or a good idea. It's always horrible. It's just miserable. Even when I've had it running well on the BlackBerry Q10.
It's never going to be as good as running it natively.
Exactly. Like, it breaks you from the aesthetic of the rest of the OS. You already feel sort of weird. There's always there's frequently some sort of performance issues. It just sucks. And I love the BlackBerry Q10. I love saying how much I love the BlackBerry Q10. But even when I had that device running Android apps fairly well, it just sucked so hard. So there you go. Not the BlackBerry, like the experience of running Android apps on a non-Android phone sucked so hard, is what I'm saying. It didn't, and it didn't arrive in time to save WebOS either, so why should anybody else get it? Screw you guys. Right? Right.
Whatever happened with, does Sailfish OS do that?
Oh God, that was the one, yes! I knew there was another one. Yola definitely offered that functionality as well.
Rings a bell.
Yeah. Well, those are all great questions. There have been a couple questions that were upvoted in the Q&A, just to touch on them before we get on out of here. Polar Zombies, who I thought was Polar Seltzer for a long time, was very excited. Do you think that the phones of today will ever get to the point where they're so large that there will be a major push by manufacturers to reduce their size? By manufacturers? No. My answer is that that push would have to come from consumers, and I don't see that happening. Stephen, what do you think?
I kind of wish it would. I think phones are already a little bit bigger than I'd like them to be as is now they're up at the 5-inch space, but it's going to be different for everyone, and I don't think it's appropriate for me to push my opinions out on the market and say this is what they should do. I mean, like you said, Michael, these are the phones consumers are buying. This is why that more companies are creating what used to be a phablet is now just a flagship level phone. I mean, 5.5 inches in the G3 seems ridiculous, but it works, and for a lot of people, it doesn't seem unfathomably huge. So unless we stop purchasing phones like this, they're just going to keep making them. I don't think that it'll get to maybe a crazy, keep on growing forever. I mean, we have these few 6 and 7-inch phones now that get them once in a while. I don't think they're a big part of any manufacturer's lineup. And I really hope those do not become the flagships a couple years from now. I hope that we're going to sort of settle down in this mid 5-inch space, maybe even up 5.7, but 6, I guess don't see there being that much interest in it.
There's definitely a one-handed usability.
There's a pocket limit too at some point.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, I've tracked it all the way up, from 3.5 to 3.7 to 4.3 to 4.7 to 5 to 5.2. we're gonna reach a point where you can no longer where the screen is going to dominate the entire front of the phone. Someone will do some sweet
No bezels
piezoelectric
at all.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean that's going to be really rad. That's going to be one of the cooler things that probably I will ever cover from a hardware perspective, from a in the smartphone world. I think just
Or, you know,
a smartphone that's all screen would, even if it is not usable because you're always hitting a side button with your thumb.
and maybe we'll have some disruptive technology coming here. So we're complaining if they're getting too big. Well, what if there's this massive revolution with flexible displays, with tiny battery technologies? We get like a scroll phone. It's like two pencils in your pocket. You pull it open. Oh, it's 6 inches. Oh, it's 9 inches. That was much bigger. I have no sense of linear distance, but something like that could happen, where just a new form factor is introduced or a spin on the existing things that make those larger screens a lot less objectionable. So,
yeah, sure. And or my particular favorite, a screen that can be folded in half with a rigid fold, like a paper fold, and then unfold and be none the worse for wear. That would enable the clamshell phones that I have naughty dreams about, to come back once again. But it's a good question, Polar Zombies, and thank you for submitting it. We have another question from Thu Win. Not sure if I pronounced that right. I'm sorry if I didn't. Do you think the smartwatch will be allowed in exams like College Board, SATs? Shit, man, I hope not. Because that's a really good way to cheat, isn't it?
Did you have like a TI-83 and the teacher made you, before the exam, go around and prove that you erased all the programs stored in the memory?
Oh, right. I remember hearing about that little bit of hackery. And even calculator watches, I think, came with programmable memory slots for a bit if you got the expensive ones.
In there or something.
Yeah, you don't want to, man. They ain't messing around. I hope they're not allowed, and I hope that you are not thinking of using one in one of your exams. Not a good idea to cheat.
Yeah, and the way you have to interact with these things, it would be incredibly obvious. I mean, you have like 17 mosquito bites on your wrist that you're trying to itch. What are you furiously scribbling away out there? And it's all voice-based for a lot of this stuff now. So unless you're
like, tell me the answer to question 4. Yeah. And then it would be like, I can do an internet search for show me the answer to question 4. No, I don't want you to.
What you need to do is you take some bottled water with you and you print your own label that looks like a real bottled water label, but in like the nutritional panel it has all your formulas and state capitals. That's the trick.
Have you seen the movie Cheaters?
No, that sounds familiar.
It's so good. And it's based on a true story. No, I don't think so. It's based on a true story. The next ACT test date is September 13th, 2014. The registration deadline is August 8th, 2014. Thank you, Jules. You're doing a bang-up job over there on the third screen. I want to mention that if you want to see a movie where cheating is displayed in all of its glory, and some really clever ways of cheating, too, watch the movie Cheaters. It has Jeff Daniels, my frickin' hero.
Oh, Jenna Malone.
Jenna Malone is in it. It's a true story about a teacher who taught all of his students to cheat on like I think it was like college board exams or something like that or something. And maybe it was exposed, maybe not. You'll have to watch the film to find out. I need to drink some beer and watch Cheaters tonight. That sounds like fun. We should do that.
Oh, what's the smartphone movie we always have to pitch? That awful one that Taylor loves.
Antitrust is one I usually fall back on. That's not a smartphone movie. One with Paranoia? No.
Yeah, with Hayden.
I don't know, but Halt and Catch Fire is now no longer like the season finale is happening. It's happened already, so now I have to be like, all right, what am I doing now? I'm gonna watch Cheaters tonight. If anybody wants to drink beer with me at the same time as and watch Cheaters from a distance, that would be wonderful.
Like that.
Yeah, I'm going to tweet it. It's going to be great. As a result, the state's title is stripped. Hey, stop with the spoilers, Jules. Get out of here. What a jerk. Quick question about the Pocketnow Live from Zach. This is the second last question we'll answer. Why can't you do them over the summer? The live, Zach, is on hiatus while we just try and survive, brother.
How is this functionally different from the live at this point?
So the live is very different in that listeners, if you haven't been to the Pocketnow Live, it is a Google Hangout, but instead of just being a room in which the Pocketnow editors are hanging out, we invite readers to come hang with us. And that's a good time. I really do enjoy that, but we just have been too busy to do it recently. All of us have. We're all wearing so many
You
hats.
see how hard it is to get two of us together in one room with internet connections that are working, so... That's
Yeah,
pushing
obviously,
it
so
a
we can
lot.
see today. Although I will say, Stephen, it's been nice to share the airwaves with you today.
Likewise,
This
so.
has been very nice. I wish I could. Normally, this is going to be the last question we answer, but normally the Q&A list kind of aggregates intelligently and puts the pluses toward the top, but it kind of
Right, democracy in action.
yeah, it kind of constantly reshuffles those is the problem. So I'm trying to find a really good one to go out on, but there are a lot that are not the right tone to go out on, and there are a lot of duplicates. All right. See, our friend
Yeah, I
Shri.
see what you mean here.
You see what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Things to know before moving to Boston, Massachusetts. Jules is continuing to throw up useful stuff. Oh, this is the one I wanted to do. Okay, because I wanted to throw a little bit of love. I knew I wasn't just standing on the Pocketnow podcast brake pedal for no reason. We kind of ignored the G3 because we lost Taylor halfway through the show, but how's the LG G3's sunlight visibility, asks Antonio
We're always
Trejo.
complaining about the brightness on that guy.
Yep, and also how low can the brightness go? So Antonio, this is detailed severely or elaborately. I don't know. I'm losing words right now. In our LG G3 review and in our other LG G3 review, we covered this a few times, but I want to mention that it is not terribly bright. It's not unusable, but it's not terribly bright. And furthermore, the device has a tendency to heat up so quickly that it self-limits the brightness further. So it's not fun to use outside.
Bright enough with my run-in with it, but granted that was indoors and not long enough for the heating to become an issue. But
right, that was a press event, and by the rules of press events, the lighting had to be terrible. So yeah. So unfortunately, but it's not the phone to use outdoors. It really isn't. So if you're someone who is like a park ranger or a boat captain, you know, someone who spends a lot of time in open sunlight, I would not recommend the G3 if you're going to be using your phone in open sunlight.
I hear boat captain, I think Hugh Hefner now. That shouldn't be the connection that I make.
It
but
really should not be. No. I need to do something with CaptainTwoPhones.com. I'll let you know when that's up. Stephen, I think we have hit the point of diminishing returns. Do you agree?
What about how low can the G3 brightness go?
Do you want to? Yeah. Do you want to?
I was going to make some joke. The phone, yes, it can turn off, but I don't really have a real answer to that.
I mean, you know, that could go. That's good. I know. I already own the domain, Jules. Thank you. Why don't we go ahead and call this show? Call it. Thanks everyone for all your Q&As. These were wonderful. Just because we couldn't find one to go out on properly, it doesn't mean they weren't great.
But they're by and large on point. Yeah, a lot of good.
Oh, they're great times. Just to tell everyone what has been happening with the music in this episode, our transition track, it's called Radiation. It's by Ali Spagnola. She's awesome. She has millions of fans already. The song is a ringtone. It's also a real song. Visit her YouTube channel to laugh your ass off because she's hilarious. youtube.com/AliSpags. Her website, alispagnola.com. Both of them are linked in the description below, or they will be by the time you watch this. Till next time, that's going to do it for this episode of the Pocketnow Weekly, which was produced by Jules Wong, a.k.a. Green.0 on Twitter. Send us listener mail to podcast@pocketnow.com. Also, be sure to find the hosts on Twitter. Taylor is the closest thing you'll find to a news bot at Casper Tech, if his internet is still working. We don't know. Stephen posts in excess of 100 tweets per year at Stephen Schenk, StephenSchencK, and I basically beat you over the head with links to my own stories and selfies at Captain Two Phones. It's Captain
But you love it.
Two Phones. Yeah, you know, it's a good time. Follow Pocketnow officially, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Google+. If you enjoy this podcast, please help us grow our audience. Leave us a review wherever podcast reviews are left. As always, we thank you so much for listening. We thank our sponsor, Swappa.com/PocketNow, and we'll be back with more mobile tech talk next week.